From epic battle scenes, impenetrable costumes, and impossible stunts, Marvel constantly has their fans' jaws dropping. With 98% of the footage from the MCU films being sent to the special effects editing professionals, it isn't hard to imagine how different our favorite Avengers look behind the scenes. But imagining and seeing are two different things. From Endgame to WandaVision and Peter Parker in between, you won't believe how dramatically different these Marvel scenes look without the power of VFX and CGI.
Just a big chocolate missile.
How iconic was this girl power moment in Avengers Endgame? However, while it may have come together seamlessly on screen, the arrival of the female Avengers took a bit more extra work behind the scenes. As you can see here, each Avenger had to be added in almost one by one. Some of them were included using special effects, and others just popped up from underneath the camera's view.
You got something for me?
Captain America's encounter with himself while searching for the Infinity Stones was already mind-boggling. But watching how they filmed the scene hurt our brains even more. Chris Evans filmed both parts individually with his stunt double, swapping roles between takes. The editors did their magic later on to make it seem as if it truly was a double trouble situation.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
Although heartbreaking, watching Tony Stark's sacrifice again is worth it, just to see how it looked behind the scenes. There was actually no Infinity Glove, no battle raging around him, and no Thanos looming over him, just RDJ's pure talent. This Vision versus Vision fight in WandaVision took a lot of work. Paul Bettany filmed this scene with his stunt double, and they later digitally enhanced his stunt double's face to look like Paul instead. You can also see that the upper part of Vision's suit, as well as the environment around them, was added in later with special effects.
But I'm not the true Vision.
Getting to see the true strength of Wanda's powers in WandaVision was epic, but the cast and crew weren't treated to the same experience while Elizabeth Olsen was filming. Without special effects, Wanda's combustion in the Westview town square kinda looked a little like an adult temper tantrum. But it's still impressive to think about how it all came together in the end.
Stop! Sorry.
This scene had our heart rates spiking, but we're glad to know Tom Holland wasn't in any danger filming it. Behind the scenes, Thanos' ship was actually just a green screen wall that Tom Holland was climbing while attached to a wire and wearing a motion capture suit.
We're too high up, you're running out of air.
That makes sense.
The final battle was much less anticlimactic behind the scenes than on screen. The majority of the time, the cast wasn't even on set with one another at the same time. The day where the Avengers charged was when they had the most people on set, and even that pales in comparison to all the digital enemies we saw in the final cut. If you look closely, you'll see the Avenger army charged into a green screen. Filming Black Widow and her motorcycle was an event that included a Harley bike specifically created for the film, stunt doubles, and motorcycle cameras. For close-up shots, they would film Scarlett Johansson at a standstill, but for action shots, they had her stunt double weaving in and out of cars while two cameras followed in front and behind on motorcycles of their own.
I'm always picking up after you, boys.
Not all special effects are done with VFX, especially in the first episodes of WandaVision. They swapped out Wanda's red waves of power for strings, poles, and simple speed adjustments to achieve that perfect 1950s style.
Well, please eat before it gets cold.
Sorry to disappoint, but Thanos, not real. Not even behind the scenes. In order to bring him to life, Josh Brolin had to wear a big motion capture suit, which made his battle for the Infinity Gauntlet with Captain America in Endgame a little awkward without all of the special effects. Captain America's shield was also added with VFX, meaning while filming, it was basically Chris Evans throwing an imaginary weapon at Josh Brolin while he pretended to get hit.
All 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers.
Living on a land full of vibranium would be epic, but unfortunately, Wakanda was all green screen and special effects, including their futuristic planes. However, they still tried to make filming as realistic as possible, like the fight scene between T'Challa and M'Baku, where the set designer created a pretty realistic base for the shoot.
Glory to Hanuman.
Doctor Strange's cape for a lot of the scenes wasn't actually there. Benedict Cumberbatch would go through the motions of grabbing and putting on the cape, but it was added in later on using special effects. They just couldn't recreate how lifelike it was without help from the digital realm. However, in other scenes where it wasn't the main focus, it was just a part of Benedict's costume. Mark Ruffalo has expressed in the past how embarrassing it sometimes was to be dressed in a large motion capture suit around the rest of the Avengers cast. While we admit it looks a bit odd, it was also that the editing team could do their magic like in this scene with the Hulk and the Ancient One. He's wearing his suit, but also standing on an elevated surface, in a green screen studio instead of New York.
And Hulk. Smash.
It's obvious to see that the Spider-Man illusion battle was completely done using digital effects thanks to the company Framestore. However, how did they get Spider-Man to move so much like Tom Holland? Well, they made sure that they filmed the stunts and movements with Tom in a motion capture suit, so that they'd be able to add the extra realism to the scene. Zendaya's part was also added into the digital sequence later on. We saw plenty of different versions of Vision in WandaVision, however, what we didn't realize is that for a portion of the series, he was actually blue. Avatar blue. The showrunners worked with the makeup department to find what color paint would look the best translated in black and white. Turns out blue looked much better than maroon, and they stuck with the color through every black and white scene he shot.
Humans are odd.
Valkyrie's entrance was intense, but when you take a peek behind the curtains, the intensity is deflated. The horse she was riding was actually just an animatronic, and the area around her was completely green screen. Even Wanda's magical drop down was done with just Elizabeth Olsen and a harness. As much as we wish these portals were real, those magic rings we see in Doctor Strange are actually just shiny metal circles with a green screen backdrop. They were elevated to give the effects of the actors stepping in and did help them meet their marks, evidently adding a little more realism to it all.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying this film.
To get Captain Marvel in the air involved a lot of VFX, green screen, and major dedication from Brie Larson. The actress was attached to a contraption made of poles that allowed the film crew to rotate her and manipulate her in any direction they needed. This was all done in front of a green screen so that her powers, location, and even part of her suit could be added in during post-production. It takes a lot to make a superhero look fabulous. The Spider-Man cast didn't actually film in London, at least for this battle scene in Far From Home. The VFX team created a digital London for the film, while the actors performed in a studio with minimal props and structures compared to what we see in the final cut. Sorry to break the illusion, but Iron Man's suit wasn't actually physically there the majority of the time. Oftentimes, RDJ would just wear part of the armor on top of a motion capture suit. There were other scenes where he would wear a physically larger suit, with his helmet being the only part added with VFX. It really depended on what the script required of him that day.
Is everything a joke to you? Funny things are.
The Marvel creators got to spend extra time playing around with Falcon for his new series, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we aren't complaining. They put in the work, researching and using footage from skydivers in order to get the perfect look for the Falcon's flying scenes. They seamlessly fit together raw shots and digital creations to give us these shots. Getting Chris Evans to look a lot smaller than he really was a challenge. The production team had to go through multiple steps. First, the scene was filmed with body double Leander Dini, who still had to diet for the role. They then digitally replaced his face with Chris Evans in editing. Sometimes they would even have to scale down the actor compared to the environment, depending on the scene. Iron Man wasn't the only one with cool gadgets at his expense. We got to see Happy's plane in Spider-Man Far From Home, and we were just as impressed as Peter Parker. However, behind the scenes, the plane didn't really exist. While they did build part of the interior as a set, the majority was created digitally. Watching how they filmed the Rocket Raccoon scenes is kind of unsettling. Take a look. Rocket was, of course, created digitally, but in order to capture realistic movements, Sean Gunn, the director's brother, acted out the scenes in a motion capture suit. Because of the animal-like movements he was able to replicate. The Vulture wasn't slick and fast, which means the Spider-Man filmmakers needed to make sure the Vulture's special effects portrayed his heaviness. It required some research on how humans look flying with jetpacks, so that they could replicate it and then add in those digitally created wings.
Is an intense look.
No wonder it seems like Marvel takes forever to release their new projects. It's because a lot of editing and behind-the-scenes work goes into making these MCU scenes top tier, and we aren't complaining. What scenes were you most shocked to see without special effects? Thanks for watching!